My name is Agar. I am here to share with you my experience in this world from when I was 6 years old and when I was beaten to death by my father. So one afternoon I was in our home. My mother was off at work, and I was sitting with my hand on my cheek, and I had a blue piece of paper on the floor, on the carpet, which I remember was soft, and it sometimes made my legs itch, but it was nice and soft to lie on. And the kitchen was right there in front of me, and our front door was to my right, and our TV room was at the back. And I was on the carpet, and I had my hand on my cheek and my blue paper, and I was lying on my stomach, and I was drawing, and I was busy drawing a sun, because it was sunny outside, and it was nice and warm. And then to my left was the sliding door outside to our back garden, and I was just drawing. My father was a very angry man always, but not. He was angry always, but he wouldn't show it. For instance, like he'd sometimes punch walls and things like that when he'd get angry, or he'd bang on the table, and then my mother and I would just go like that, but he'd never hurt us. And then that afternoon, when I was just by myself and enjoying me drawing the sun on a blue piece of paper, because that was the only paper I could find in the house, my father came in through the front door, and he had his suitcase and he had his jacket over his left arm, and he walked in, and his hair was all scrumpled up and his tie was loose, because he had gone for a very long time without work, and he was looking for work. And it was from the time that he was looking for work that he became so angry in himself. He wasn't always like that. He just changed. And he came in, and I could feel something was wrong, because his eyes were all droopy, and he was slouching, but yet his fists were clenched, and he just threw everything down, and he was just standing there with his head up, his eyes closed, and then he just took his hands and he went, "Ah!" and he screamed and he yelled. He was "Ah! Ah!" like that, and he was just pulling his hair, and he was just that frightened me so much that I froze completely. I froze. I just froze. I dropped my coloring in pencil, and I just lay there, because I hoped he might not see me, because I didn't know what to expect. And then he just looked at me, and he just went, and he walked to the kitchen, and there was an empty beer bottle there by the kitchen, and he grabbed the beer bottle, and he walked to me, and he just started hitting me all over. He just hit and he hit and he hit and he hit me right where all my bones were. So that was so painful when he started hitting me. Over and over and over again. He hit and he hit and he hit. And it was so painful and the shock was so great inside my body that I couldn't even scream. I couldn't even cry. The crying came, but the screaming was first. But then the pain got so bad and the pain got so much inside my body, inside me. And the shock was so great that I couldn't scream anymore. There was no time to scream. It was just constant, continuous shock, pain, shooting throughout my body. And I was just crying and crying, and I couldn't even scream to him to stop, but he just kept hitting, and he just kept hitting, and he just kept hitting, and he said, "It's your fault that my life is such a mess. It's your fault that my life is what it is. It's your fault that I don't have a job. You fucked up my life. You are the problem. You are the problem." And he just kept hitting and hitting and hitting, and he hit my head, and my face, and my legs, my knees, my arms, and I tried to crawl up into fetal position, but then he just hit my back and he hit my neck and he just kept hitting, and then he hit me here by my neck, over here, and that's when the bottle broke, because he hit just like that, and he hit me right there, and the bottle broke and the glass shattered into my neck and blood just spattered out. And I just started feeling choking on my own blood inside my throat, and my body was so painful, and I just wished in that moment I still wanted to be alive, but I knew that in this body right now I couldn't possibly still live in this body anymore, because it was just too painful. I had to go, and the blood was coming through here, and I could feel it even coming through my eyes. Blood, water, I couldn't see. I could feel my neck was open, and my father just stood next to me, and he fell down on his knees, and he just started crying, and he had the glass in his hands, and his hands were bleeding, and he was just standing there, and he cried while I was dying right there in front of him. And it took me a while to die. I was lying there for quite a while until I eventually bled to death. And then everything stopped, and I think I moved out of my body because the pain was just too much. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't take it anymore. It was so bad, unimaginable pain. And so I moved out of my body, and I stood there, and I could see my body, and I could see my father, and he took my body outside and he buried it outside in the corner of the garden, deep inside, right in the corner, way back, where no one would be able to see or find my body. He cleaned the carpet, and then phoned my mother. I will continue in my next interview.